Here we have to solve a rational equation of 1 out of x plus 1 out of y equals to 1 out of z, and we have to solve it for the variable x. Let's begin by finding the least common denominator. We need a factor of x for the first denominator, we need the factor of y for the second denominator, and we need the factor of z for the third denominator. So least common denominator is x, y, z. We also need to find the restricted values, and the best way of doing that is set least common denominator not equal to 0. So x, y, z cannot be equal to 0. Now to solve this, we set each of the factors not equal to 0, which means x cannot be equal to 0, y cannot be equal to 0, and z cannot be equal to 0. So our restricted values are x cannot be equal to 0, y cannot be equal to 0, and z cannot be equal to 0. Now we can begin solving 1 out of x plus 1 out of y equal to 1 out of z. Let's multiply both sides by least common denominator of x, y, z. Let's distribute x, y, z on the left, and we get x, y, z times 1 out of x plus x, y, z times 1 out of y is equal to, on the right we have 1 times x times y times z out of z. Z divided by z will cancel out, so we are left with 1 times xy, which is just xy. On the left we have x, y, z times 1 out of x. X divided by x will cancel out, and we get yz times 1, which is yz, plus the second term is xyz times 1 out of y. Y divided by y will cancel out, and we are left with xz times 1, which is just xz, and this is equal to xy. We are solving for x, which means we need to have x on the same side of the equal sign. So let's move xz to the right by minusing xz on both sides, and we get yz. Xz minus xz will add up to 0 is equal to xy minus xz. Now on the right we have xy minus xz. We are solving for one variable of x, which appears twice. The best way of solving this problem is to factor out x from these two terms. So x goes into the denominator, and on the outside this will give us yz is equal to x times x and x will cancel, so we have y minus x and x will cancel, z. So yz is equal to x times y minus z, and to solve for x we need to do the inverse of multiplying by y minus z, which is to divide by y minus z. And whatever we do to one side, we do the same thing to the other side, so yz divided by y minus z. This will give us x times y minus z out of y minus z. Y minus z and y minus z will cancel, so we will get x is equal to yz out of y minus z. And this is our solution. That's all.